I am Isabella, 32 years old and the secret CEO of a tech empire worth billions. My family has no idea. For years, they have belittled my career choices, dismissed my ambitions, and treated me like the family disappointment. Tonight at Christmas dinner, my sister Sophia smirked as my mother announced I would be sleeping in the unheated garage while her boss got the guest room. My hands trembled with silent rage beneath the table. 5 years, I have hidden my success, endured their mockery. They have no clue that tomorrow everything changes. Before I tell you how I went from sleeping in a frozen garage to watching my family's jaws drop, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe for more stories about women taking back their power. I grew up in suburban Chicago in a family that valued traditional markers of success. My parents, Victoria and Richard Torres, had very specific ideas about what achievement looked like: prestigious universities, conventional career paths, and the external validation that came with them. My older sister, Sophia, now 38, was the golden child who checked every box on their list of expectations. She attended an Ivy League school, got her MBA, and landed a marketing director position at Summit Tech Industries, a well-established software firm. Every family gathering became a showcase for her accomplishments. My younger brother Ethan, 28, quickly learned to follow Sophia's blueprint. He studied finance, joined a respected accounting firm, and recently made junior partner. My parents beamed with pride whenever they spoke about him, their voices warm with approval. Then there was me, stuck in the middle, the square peg they could never hammer into their round hole of expectations. From the time I was 10, I was fascinated by computers and coding. While other kids played video games, I wanted to understand how they worked. I would spend hours taking apart old electronics and teaching myself programming languages. My parents viewed this as me playing around, a phase I would outgrow once I discovered real interests. "Isabella, when are you going to join a proper club?" my mother would ask. "Colleges look for well-rounded students, not kids who sit in their room all day." High school only widened the gap between my interests and my family's expectations. While Sophia was class president and prom queen, I started a coding club that met in the computer lab during lunch. My unconventional thinking that teachers praised as innovative was labeled at home as a lack of focus. "You jump from one project to another," my father complained after I abandoned a half-finished robot to work on a website I was building. "You need to see things through like your sister." What they failed to understand was that I wasn't abandoning ideas. I was evolving them, each project teaching me something I carried into the next. College was supposed to be my turning point. I enrolled in business school to appease my parents, but simultaneously worked on my startup idea. By sophomore year, I knew I had something promising, a revolutionary cloud security solution that larger companies were already expressing interest in. When I decided to drop out to pursue it full-time, my family reacted as if I had announced plans to join a cult. "You are throwing your life away," my father said, his disappointment palpable across the dinner table. "We did not raise you to be a quitter. Even if this little project of yours works out, which it won't, what kind of life will that be? No stability, no benefits, no real career," my mother added. Sophia, home for the weekend, shook her head with that superior smile I had grown to hate. "Not everyone is cut out for success, Mom. Some people need to learn the hard way." The comparisons became relentless after that. Every family gathering turned into a showcase of Sophia's achievements, juxtaposed against my perceived failures. She would arrive in her luxury car, dressed in designer clothes, talking about her corner office and team of subordinates. My parents introduced her with pride at neighborhood functions, while awkwardly changing the subject when asked about me. "Sophia just closed a 7-figure marketing deal," my father would tell anyone who would listen. "Isabella is still figuring things out," my mother would say when forced to acknowledge my existence. The turning point came 3 years ago at Thanksgiving dinner. I had just secured $2 million in seed funding, but when I tried to share the news, Sophia interrupted with an announcement about her promotion to senior director. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," my mother exclaimed, completely forgetting I had been mid-sentence. As everyone raised their glasses to toast Sophia, I made a decision. I would stop seeking their approval. More than that, I would keep my growing success to myself. Let them think what they wanted. Someday, when the time was right, they would learn the truth. That night, I founded Nexus Solutions. What began as a security software startup quickly expanded into a comprehensive tech ecosystem that attracted major clients. Within 2 years, we had offices in 3 cities. By year 3, we had gone international. I built strategic partnerships, acquired smaller companies, and reinvested profits to fuel exponential growth, all while maintaining a modest public persona. As CEO, I made the unconventional choice to remain anonymous in industry circles, operating through trusted executives for public appearances. It was partly a business strategy, allowing us the advantage of being underestimated by competitors, but mostly it was personal. I wasn't ready for my family to know. The emotional toll of living this double life was significant. I owned a penthouse downtown, but told my family I rented a studio apartment. I drove a 10-year-old Honda to family functions while my collection of luxury cars stayed in my private garage. I endured questions about when I would get a real job while running board meetings for a company valued at billions. 5 years after dropping out, I orchestrated our biggest move yet, the acquisition of Summit Tech Industries, the very company where Sophia built her career. The irony wasn't lost on me. Soon, without knowing it, my golden child sister would be working for the family disappointment. The acquisition papers for Summit Tech Industries arrived in my office exactly 1 week before Christmas. I sat at my desk running my fingers over the embossed logo, now stamped with a Nexus company beneath it. 5 years of work had culminated in this moment. The company that had fueled my sister's superiority complex was now mine. "Would you like me to arrange the announcement to the Summit Tech employees?" my assistant Diane asked. I shook my head. Not until after the holidays. Let them enjoy Christmas without worrying about corporate restructuring. What I didn't say was that I wanted one last family gathering with the old dynamic intact. One final Christmas with them unaware before everything changed. The annual invitation from my parents had arrived via text, as perfunctory as ever. "Christmas Eve dinner at 6. Let us know if you're coming." No warmth, no excitement at the prospect of seeing me, just logistics. I texted back my acceptance, though every instinct told me to decline. 5 years of conditioning had taught me what to expect. Hours of Sophia's boasting, my parents' thinly veiled disappointment, and Ethan's quiet allegiance to the family hierarchy that placed me firmly at the bottom. Despite owning a fleet of luxury vehicles, I drove my trusty Honda Civic to my parents' suburban home on Christmas Eve. The modest car was part of my cover, but it also served as armor. It reminded me that I had nothing to prove to them, that their validation no longer determined my worth. I pulled into the driveway behind an ostentatious Jaguar I didn't recognize. Inside, I found my answer. Sophia had brought a guest, Harold Martinez, Senior Vice President of Marketing at Summit Tech Industries, her boss, and the man she had been trying to impress for years. "Isabella, you remember Harold?" Sophia said, though we had never met. She wore a red designer dress that probably cost more than what she thought I earned in a month. Harold stood beside her in an expertly tailored suit, a Rolex gleaming on his wrist. "Isabella, there you are," my mother called from the kitchen doorway. "I could use some help with the vegetables. Sophia and Harold are catching up with your father in the living room." And there it was, the familiar pattern. Sophia entertained in the living room, while I was relegated to kitchen duty. I silently chopped carrots and peeled potatoes, listening to the laughter from the other room. "So how's the new corner office, Harold?" my father asked. Sophia tells us the view of the harbor is spectacular. It certainly is, Richard, though I hear our mysterious new CEO has an even better one. Have you met this new CEO yet? My father inquired. No one has, Sophia interjected. She's like a ghost, makes all these decisions that upend everything, but never shows her face. Her face, I whispered to myself, smiling slightly at the carrot I was chopping. Isabella, how's that little website thing you were working on? My father called out suddenly, remembering my existence. Any luck with it? I bit my tongue. My little website thing had just acquired Sophia's company for $3 billion. It's coming along, I answered noncommittally. You know, there's an entry-level marketing position opening up at Summit next quarter, Sophia said, entering the kitchen to refill her wine glass. Nothing fancy, but it would give you some actual experience. I could put in a word. The condescension in her voice made my jaw clench. If she only knew that I would be reviewing her performance evaluations next month. Thanks, but I'm okay with my current situation, I managed. Suit yourself, she shrugged, returning to the living room. I caught snippets of my parents' conversation as I finished the dinner preparations. At least Ethan is making something of himself, my mother said in a hushed tone. I worry about Isabella, 32 and still chasing internet dreams. Sophia has tried to help her, but you can't help someone who won't help themselves. I closed my eyes, letting the familiar pain wash over me. 5 years of success had insulated me from caring too deeply about their opinions, but some wounds never fully heal. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from my CFO about the summit transition. Finalize the retention packages for key executives. Harold Martinez on the list, per your instructions. I smiled despite myself. Harold had no idea that his future at the company was already being decided by the woman chopping vegetables in this kitchen. The final straw came just before dinner. I had stepped into the hallway to quickly check an urgent email when I overheard Sophia and my mother talking in the guest bedroom. We've put Harold in here, of course, my mother was saying. My father and I are in our room, Ethan's in his old room, and you'll have yours. What about Isabella? Sophia asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Well, the couch in the den is too short, and we're using it to stage the gifts anyway. I thought the garage would work. It's just for one night. Perfect, Sophia laughed. The garage suits her. She's used to roughing it with that startup lifestyle. My blood ran cold. The garage. In Chicago? In December? With no heating? My hands trembled with silent rage as I slipped back into the kitchen, pretending I hadn't heard. 5 years of building an empire while enduring their mockery, and they were banishing me to a freezing garage for Christmas Eve. The food was delicious, Victoria, Harold said, finishing his second helping of ham. You've outdone yourself. Thank you, Harold, my mother beamed. It's so nice having everyone home for Christmas, and having you join us is such a treat. Speaking of which, my father added, we should discuss sleeping arrangements. It's getting late. My stomach tightened. Here it came. Harold, we've prepared the guest room for you, my mother said. Fresh sheets and towels in the ensuite bathroom. Sophia, you'll have your old room, of course, my father continued, and Ethan's already settled in his. All eyes turned to me, and I could see the discomfort flicker across my parents' faces. Isabella, my mother began, her voice taking on a falsely bright tone. We've set up the garage for you. There's a camping cot and plenty of blankets. I know it's not ideal, but it's just for one night. Sophia smirked behind her wine glass, and Ethan suddenly became very interested in his mashed potatoes. The garage isn't heated, I said flatly. You can take one of the space heaters, my father offered, as if this was a generous concession. It won't be that bad. Harold looked genuinely shocked. The garage, but it's freezing outside. Isabella doesn't mind, Sophia said quickly. "She's always been the adventurous one, haven't you, sis?" The condescension in her voice made my blood boil. I knew then that she had orchestrated this, bringing Harold specifically to ensure I would be the one displaced. "I'm sure we could figure something else out," Harold suggested, looking awkwardly. "It's fine," I said, my voice calmer than I felt. "I have work to do tonight anyway." After dinner, I followed my mother to the garage to see my accommodations. What greeted me was worse than I had imagined. The space was cluttered with storage boxes, old exercise equipment, and forgotten Christmas decorations. In the center was a sagging camping cot with a thin mattress. A pile of mismatched blankets sat at one end, and a small space heater that looked like it was from the 90s stood nearby. "It's just for one night," my mother repeated, not quite meeting my eyes. "And you're always on that laptop of yours anyway. You probably won't even notice." I said nothing as she retreated back into the warmth of the house. When the door closed behind her, I sat on the edge of the cot and pulled out my phone. The temperature reading showed 28 degrees. Inside the garage, it might be slightly warmer, but not by much. I opened my laptop, password protecting the screen as was my habit, and saw an urgent message from my executive team. The final details of the Summit acquisition needed my approval before the morning announcement. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., a company-wide email would go out to all Summit employees, including Sophia and Harold, revealing Nexus as their new parent company. It would also reveal me as the CEO. As I reviewed the documents, a plan began forming in my mind. Why wait until tomorrow? Why not take control of this narrative now? My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant. "Prepare to send the executive briefing tonight instead of tomorrow morning, if you approve. All department heads at Summit will be notified simultaneously." I looked at the time, 8:30 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Harold and Sophia would both receive the notification as senior staff members. Harold's reaction in particular would be impossible to hide. I finger hovered over the reply button. 5 years of hiding, of enduring their dismissal and disrespect. 5 years of biting my tongue and playing small. Was I really going to let them banish me to a freezing garage on Christmas Eve? The garage door opened and Harold stepped in, looking sheepish. "Sorry to intrude," he said. "I just wanted to check if you were okay out here. It's really cold." Before I could respond, his phone chimed with an incoming email. Then again, and again. Harold frowned, pulling his phone from his pocket. That's strange. Multiple urgent messages from the executive team on Christmas Eve. He opened the first email and I watched as his expression shifted from confusion to shock. "This says Summit has been acquired by Nexus Tech Solutions, effective immediately, but that's impossible. We would have known." His phone rang and he answered automatically. "Harold Martinez? Yes, I just saw the emails. No, I had no idea. The CEO wants to speak with me now on Christmas Eve?" As he listened to the voice on the other end, his eyes widened, and he slowly turned to look at me. Really look at me for the first time. Recognition dawned on his face as he connected the dots. She's right here," he said into the phone, his voice barely above a whisper. The garage suddenly felt much colder as Harold stared at me, phone still pressed to his ear. I could hear the tiny voice of my chief operating officer asking if he was sure if he was actually with Isabella Torres, CEO of Nexus Solutions. "I believe I am," Harold said carefully, his eyes never leaving my face. I held out my hand for the phone. "May I?" With robotic movements, he passed me his cell. The moment felt surreal, sitting on a sagging cot in my parents' cluttered garage, about to shatter 5 years of deception. "James," I said, using my executive voice, the one my family had never heard, Yes, I'm with Harold now. The timeline has moved up. Proceed with the full announcement to the executive team tonight. We'll address the rest of the staff tomorrow as planned. I could almost hear James's confusion through the phone. Tonight, ma'am? It's Christmas Eve. I'm aware of the date, I replied, watching Harold's face grow increasingly pale. Some circumstances have changed. Proceed immediately. After ending the call, I handed the phone back to Harold, who took it as if it might bite him. You're the CEO of Nexus, he stated, not a question but a confirmation to himself. You bought Summit. I did, I confirmed, closing my laptop. But he gestured vaguely at my surroundings, the garage, the camping cot, the space heater struggling against the December chill. Sleeping in a garage on Christmas Eve, I finished for him. Yes, it appears so. The door to the house opened again and Sophia appeared, her own phone clutched in her hand. Her face was drained of color. Harold, did you get the emails? Something's happening with the company. They're saying we've been acquired by... She trailed off as she saw the expression on Harold's face, then followed his gaze to me. What's going on? Perhaps we should discuss this inside, I suggested, standing up from the cot. It's rather cold out here. In a daze, Harold and Sophia followed me back into the house. The warm air hit my face as we entered the kitchen where my parents and Ethan were cleaning up after dinner. Done settling in already? My mother asked without looking up from the dishes. There's been a change of plans, I said, calmly. We need to talk. Something in my voice must have registered because my mother turned around, dishcloth still in hand. My father looked up from drying a serving platter, and Ethan paused loading the dishwasher. What's wrong? My father asked, looking between me and the shell-shocked expressions of Sophia and Harold. Harold, your phone rang again, breaking the tension. He glanced at the screen, then at me, clearly unsure what to do. You should answer that, I told him. It's probably the CFO with the retention package details. His eyebrows shot up, but he answered the call, putting it on speaker, perhaps without even realizing it. Harold, it's Greg from Finance. Have you seen the announcement? Nexus has acquired us, and the CEO wants immediate meetings with all department heads. They're saying she's been working undercover or something. Do you know anything about this? The kitchen fell completely silent. 5 pairs of eyes fixed on me. Greg, I'll call you back, Harold said, faintly, ending the call. Isabella? Sophia began, her voice unusually high. What is he talking about? What do you know about this? I looked around at my family, at the kitchen where I'd spent countless holidays feeling invisible. The moment I had both dreaded and anticipated for 5 years had arrived. I'm the CEO and founder of Nexus Solutions, I said simply. As of last week, I own Summit Tech Industries. The silence that followed was absolute. My mother's dishcloth slipped from her fingers and fell to the floor. My father's mouth opened and closed without sound. Ethan froze mid-motion, a plate suspended between his hands in the dishwasher. Sophia broke the silence with a sharp, disbelieving laugh. That's not possible. Nexus is worth billions. It's one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. Yes, I agreed. It is. But you dropped out of college, my father stammered. You've been working on some small startup. That small startup was Nexus, I explained. It hasn't been small for quite some time. You're lying, Sophia accused, though doubt had begun to creep into her voice. This is some kind of joke. In response, I pulled out my phone and opened a secure app that connected directly to the Nexus system. I entered my authorization code and turned the screen toward them, showing the dashboard that only the CEO could access. This is real-time data from our global operations, I explained. Our current valuation is just over $11 billion. We have 7,000 employees across 4 continents, and as of last week, that includes everyone at Summit Tech Industries. Harold had begun nodding slowly, pieces falling into place. The security innovations, the management restructuring, the focus on cloud infrastructure, that was all you. Every bit of it, I confirmed. But why didn't you tell us? My mother asked, finding her voice at last. All this time, we thought— You thought I was a failure, I finished for her. You made that abundantly clear at every holiday, every family gathering, every phone call. We were concerned, my father protested weakly. We wanted security for you. No, I corrected him. Years of pent-out emotion finally breaking through. You wanted me to be like Sophia, to follow a path you understood. When I chose differently, you decided I was lost. You never once asked what I was building or showed any real interest in my work. That's not fair, Sophia interjected. We tried to help you. I offered you jobs, connections. I offered you entry-level positions and spoke to me with condescension. You brought your boss to Christmas dinner and had me banished to the garage so you could impress him. Harold had winced at this, looking deeply uncomfortable. I didn't know you'd be in the garage, he said quietly. I would never have agreed to stay if I'd known. My mother stepped forward, her expression shifting to something I rarely saw directed at me: respect and perhaps a touch of fear. Isabella, sweetheart, if we had known about your company, of course we would have supported you. We've always wanted what's best. Please don't, I interrupted, raising a hand. Don't pretend that you would have treated me differently if you'd known I was rich. That only makes it worse. The kitchen fell silent again. My phone continued to buzz with notifications as the news spread through the executive ranks at both companies. Outside, snow had begun to fall, dusting the window panes with white. So, what happens now? Ethan asked, speaking for the first time. With Summit, I mean. Business continues as usual for most employees. There will be some restructuring at the executive level, but no mass layoffs. Sophia's face had gone from white to gray. And I? Am I fired? The question hung in the air. 5 years ago, I might have savored this moment, the power to determine my sister's fate. Now it just felt hollow. No, Sophia, you're not fired. Your marketing strategies have been effective. Whatever our personal differences, you're good at what you do. But you will be reporting to a new director starting next month. Relief washed over her face, quickly replaced by a new worry. Will everyone know about us being sisters? That's up to you, I told her. I've kept my identity private for business reasons, not just personal ones. That will change now, but how we handle our relationship in the workplace is something we can discuss. My father cleared his throat, clearly struggling to reconcile his perception of me with this new reality. Where do you live? He asked suddenly. You always said you had a small apartment downtown. I have a penthouse on the waterfront, and homes in New York and San Francisco where our other main offices are located. My mother sank into a kitchen chair, looking overwhelmed. All this time, we had no idea. That was by design, I acknowledged. After years of trying to prove myself to you, I decided to stop trying. The company became my focus instead. Harold's phone rang again, and he glanced at me apologetically before stepping into the hallway to take the call. I could hear him talking in his executive voice, suddenly very much the SVP addressing a crisis situation. Sophia stared at me as if seeing a stranger. In many ways, she was. The Isabella she knew, the little sister she had alternately ignored and patronized, had never existed. Not really. I suppose I should get my things from the garage, I said into the awkward silence. I'll find a hotel for it tonight. No, my mother exclaimed, jumping to her feet. You can't leave now. It's Christmas Eve and your family. The irony of her sudden concern wasn't lost on anyone in the room. The guest room is already prepared, my father added hastily. Harold can take the den or the garage if necessary. I wouldn't put anyone in that garage, I said firmly, not even for one night. Harold returned, slipping his phone into his pocket. That was the board chairman. They've called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. He looked at me with new respect in his eyes. Your team works fast. Efficiency has always been a priority at Nexus, I replied. The dynamics in the room had shifted completely. My family stood awkwardly in their own kitchen, suddenly unsure of their place. The power balance that had defined our relationships for decades had been upended in the span of 15 minutes. "I need some air," Sophia said abruptly, heading for the back door. After a moment's hesitation, I followed her outside. The back porch was covered in a thin layer of fresh snow glittering under the porch light. Sophia stood at the railing, her breath forming clouds in the cold air. "Are you really going to keep me on?" she asked, without turning around. "Or was that just for show in front of everyone?" "I meant what I said," I told her, joining her at the railing. "Your work is good, Sophia. Our personal history doesn't change that." She nodded slowly, still not looking at me. "I've been horrible to you." "Yes," I agreed simply. "You have." "And now you're my boss." She laughed, a short, humorless sound. God, the irony. "Life is full of unexpected twists," I said. Finally, she turned to face me. "Why didn't you tell me? All these years watching me brag about Summit, knowing you could buy and sell us 10 times over, why let me make such a fool of myself?" I considered her question carefully, searching for the honest answer. At first, it was self-preservation. The company was growing but still vulnerable. Then it became habit, and maybe part of me was waiting. Waiting for what? For one of you to see me, to be interested in my life without knowing what I had accomplished, to value me, not for my success. Tears welled in Sophia's eyes, something I couldn't remember seeing since we were children. I don't think I know how to do that anymore, with anyone. It was perhaps the most honest thing she had ever said to me. I went back inside to retrieve my overnight bag from the garage, moving past my stunned family members who seemed frozen in place. When I returned to the house, Harold was collecting his belongings from the guest room. "He called a car service," he told me. "I think it's best if I give your family some space tonight." "You don't have to leave," I said. "I think I do," he countered with a wry smile. "Besides, I have about 100 emails to answer before morning. Apparently, my new boss is quite demanding." For the first time that evening, I felt a genuine smile tug at my lips. "Is that so?" "Her reputation precedes her," he confirmed, then added more seriously, "For what it's worth, you've built something remarkable. The security framework you developed revolutionized the industry. I'm actually looking forward to seeing where you take Summit." The living room had never felt so silent. We sat in our usual places, yet everything had changed. My parents occupied their matching recliners, Ethan perched on the arm of the sofa, Sophia curled into the corner of the love seat, and I sat on the ottoman, all of us separated by more than just physical space. "So," my father finally broke the silence, "a tech empire." It wasn't quite a question, but I nodded anyway. "Yes." "And you've been running this company all this time. Well, we thought—" My mother trailed off, unable to complete the thought. "While you thought I was failing?" I finished for her. "Yes." Sophia stared at her hands. "Why keep it secret for so long? Why not just tell us?" The question seemed simple, but the answer was complicated, layered with years of hurt and disappointment. At first, it was because I needed to prove it to myself. I didn't want to announce big plans only to fail. Then, as the company grew, I realized something. You had never shown interest in my work before. Why would money change that? What I wanted wasn't your approval of my bank account. I wanted you to believe in me, in my vision. "We always believed in you," my mother protested weakly. "No," I said firmly, but without anger. "You believed in a version of me that never existed, the daughter who would follow Sophia's path. When I chose differently, your belief vanished." My father shifted uncomfortably. "We were concerned about your future. That's what parents do." "There's a difference between concern and dismissal," I pointed out. "You never once asked me to explain my business model or my goals. You just assumed I was playing at being an entrepreneur." Ethan cleared his throat. I remember when you tried to tell us about your first round of funding. Mom interrupted you to ask Sophia about her new car. My mother flushed. I don't remember that. I do, Sophia said quietly. I remember thinking it was fine because whatever Isabella was doing couldn't be as important as my promotion. The admission hung in the air between us. In all our years of rivalry, Sophia had never acknowledged her role in diminishing me. What does Nexus actually do? Ethan asked, genuine curiosity in his voice, besides owning Summit now. We started with advanced cloud security. The security protocols I developed became the industry standard within 2 years. From there, we expanded into integrated systems management, data protection, and eventually artificial intelligence applications for enterprise. Ethan nodded, processing this information. That's why Summit was a strategic acquisition. Their hardware complements your software ecosystem. Exactly, I confirmed, impressed by his quick understanding. And you did all this without a college degree? My father asked, his tone unreadable. The skills I needed, I taught myself. The rest I hired people who knew more than me. That's what good CEOs do. My mother stood suddenly, disappearing into the kitchen. When she returned, she carried a magazine that had been buried under a stack of mail. The cover featured a silhouette with the headline, Nexus's Mysterious Founder, Tech's Most Influential and Visible Leader. This came with Richard's business journal last month. I never connected it to you. I never even read the article. The irony wasn't lost on me. Evidence of my success had literally been sitting on their coffee table, unread and unnoticed. Does this mean you're rich? My father asked awkwardly. Yes, very. Sophia made a sound between a laugh and a sob. All of those times I offered to help you financially, to get you back on your feet, God, you must have been laughing at me. I wasn't laughing, I assured her. It was painful, actually, to be seen as someone who needed saving when I was building something I was proud of. Are you going to fire me? She asked suddenly, voicing the fear that had clearly been consuming her since the revelation. I already told you no. Your position is secure, though your reporting structure will change. She nodded, relief washing over her face. I don't deserve that kindness from you. It's not kindness, I corrected her. It's business. You're good at what you do, whatever our personal history. My father leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. I don't know what to say, Isabella. We've been wrong about you. Completely wrong. It was perhaps the closest thing to an apology I had ever heard from him. I kept the truth from you, I acknowledged, but we gave you reason to, my mother said softly. We made you feel like you had to hide your success instead of share it. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room again. Years of familial patterns don't dissolve in a single evening, no matter how revelatory. Where do we go from here? Ethan finally asked. The practical one, as always. It was the question hanging over all of us. How do you rebuild relationships based on fundamental misconceptions? How do you move forward when the past has been rewritten so completely? I don't know, I admitted. This isn't how I planned to tell you. I'm still processing it myself. Will you stay tonight? My mother asked, an edge of desperation in her voice. Not in the garage, obviously. The guest room is yours. The thought of staying, of trying to sleep under this roof with all these emotions swirling, was overwhelming. But the alternative, driving away on Christmas Eve, felt equally wrong. I'll stay, I decided. But I have calls to make first. The announcement has gone out to the executive team, and there will be questions. My father nodded, a new respect in his eyes. Of course, you have a company to run. The simple acknowledgement of my responsibilities, something I had never received from him before, felt strangely validating. As I stood to retrieve my laptop from the garage, Sophia rose as well. I'll help you move your things to the guest room, she offered, an olive branch in the form of a simple courtesy. Together, we walked to the garage in silence. The space felt different now, the indignity of the accommodation even more stark in light of the evening's revelations. "I'm sorry about this," Sophia said, gesturing to the camping cot. "It was my idea." "You thought it would be funny to make me sleep in a freezing garage on Christmas Eve?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. She had the grace to look ashamed. "It sounds cruel when you say it like that." Because it was cruel. Whether I was a struggling entrepreneur or a billionaire CEO, it was unkind. She nodded, accepting the truth of this. "I've spent so many years seeing you as competition instead of as my sister. I don't know how to stop." "Maybe that's where we start," I suggested, gathering my overnight bag. "By not competing, by just being sisters." As we re-entered the house, my phone buzzed with a text from Harold. "Car service here, heading downtown. Board briefed on situation. Full support for your leadership. Merry Christmas, boss." The message brought a smile to my face. At least professionally, the transition was proceeding smoothly. My mother had prepared the guest room with fresh towels and had turned down the bed. A peace offering in household chores. My father had built a fire in the fireplace, the home warming as if an apology for the coldness it had shown me earlier. That night, lying in the guest bed instead of the garage cot, I reflected on the day's unexpected turn. 5 years of hiding ended in a moment. 5 years of separation from my family, bridged by a revelation I hadn't planned. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The formal announcement to all Summit employees, the press releases that would make public my role as CEO, the inevitable questions about why I had remained anonymous for so long. But tonight, in this quiet moment, I allowed myself to feel something unexpected. Relief. The weight of deception had been lifted. Whatever came next, I would face it as my whole self, no longer compartmentalizing my life into the successful CEO and the disappointing daughter. Across the hall, I could hear Sophia on the phone, presumably with colleagues at Summit, her voice hushed but urgent. Down the hall, my parents' low voices filtered through their door, no doubt discussing the stranger their middle child had turned out to be. We were still a fractured family, but for the first time in years, we were seeing each other clearly. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It wasn't even understanding, but it was a beginning. Christmas morning dawned with awkward uncertainty hanging in the air like the scent of brewing coffee. I rose early, accustomed to starting my day before sunrise, and found my father already in the kitchen, staring into his mug as if it contained answers to questions he hadn't yet formulated. "Merry Christmas," I offered tentatively. He looked up, startled. "Merry Christmas, Isabella. Coffee?" He poured me a cup with unusual care, as if serving an important guest rather than his daughter. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I would have in the garage," I replied, unable to resist the small jab. He winced. "About that, it was inexcusable. I want you to know I didn't realize how cold it was out there." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was more acknowledgement than I typically received. I accepted it with a nod. "I have some calls to make before everyone wakes up," I said, checking my phone. "The formal announcement goes out to all Summit employees at 9. "Of course," he said, and then added awkwardly, "Should I leave you alone for privacy?" The question revealed how little he knew about my life, my work, my daily routine. "No, it's fine. I'm used to working anywhere." He watched me with newfound curiosity as I set up my laptop at the kitchen table, the same place where I had done homework as a child. As I answered emails and approved final communications, I could feel his eyes on me, seeing me truly working for the first time. By 8:30, the rest of the family had trickled into the kitchen. My mother fussed over breakfast with extra attention, producing elaborate French toast and fresh fruit that hadn't been planned for our original meal. Sophia checked her phone compulsively, awaiting the official announcement. Ethan observed us all with the careful neutrality of someone watching a delicate negotiation. "Should we do presents now or after breakfast?" my mother asked, trying to establish some normalcy. "After is fine," I said, closing my laptop as 9 o'clock approached. "The announcement is going out now." Almost on cue, Sophia's phone chimed with an incoming email. She read it silently, her expression unreadable, then looked up at me. "It's official. Nexus Solutions has acquired Summit Tech Industries, effective immediately. Isabella Torres, founder and CEO of Nexus, will address all employees after the holiday." My parents exchanged glances, the reality of my position sinking in anew. "Torres," my father repeated. "You kept our family name." "Of course. Whatever our differences, I'm still a Torres." Something flickered across his face, something that might have been pride. When we finally gathered around the Christmas tree, the contrast to previous years was stark. The presents under the tree told their own story. There were the usual carefully chosen gifts for Sophia and Ethan, and the perfunctory items for me, selected without much thought or knowledge of my preferences. What no one had anticipated was the elegant stack of packages I had brought with me. Each was wrapped in simple but expensive paper containing gifts I had selected months ago. "You brought presents?" my mother asked, surprise evident in her voice. "Of course, it's Christmas." One by one, I distributed them. For my father, a rare first edition of his favorite economics text, signed by the author. For my mother, a handcrafted jewelry box containing a necklace from a boutique designer she'd once mentioned admiring. For Ethan, a high-end watch he had coveted but would never buy for himself. And for Sophia, a leather portfolio embossed with her initials, filled with Japanese stationery she had fallen in love with during a business trip to Tokyo last year. Their faces registered shock as they opened these thoughtfully selected items, evidence that, despite their inattention to my life, I had been paying attention to theirs. "How did you know about the necklace?" my mother asked, fingering the delicate pendant. "I only mentioned it once, years ago." "I listen. I always have." 6 months after that fateful Christmas, I stood on the deck of my lakeside home, watching my family arrive for our summer gathering. The transformation in our relationships was visible in the easy way they navigated to my door, no longer awkward or uncertain in my space. Our weekly family calls had become a fixture in all our schedules, no longer the obligatory check-ins of the past, but genuine connections. My parents now proudly introduce me as our entrepreneur daughter to friends and neighbors. Sophia and I had developed a collaborative relationship that capitalized on our different strengths. Her marketing intuition complemented my technical vision. We had moved from competition to collaboration, each finding security in our unique contributions. Most surprisingly, Ethan had approached me for career advice, eventually developing his own entrepreneurial ambitions with a financial consultancy focused on tech startups. As we gathered around the table on the deck overlooking the water, I marveled at the distance we had traveled. The garage that once had been my Christmas exile was now a distant memory, replaced by the warmth of genuine connection. Success, I had learned, was not measured by achievements alone, but by the authenticity of our connections, the courage to be vulnerable, the willingness to grow beyond old limitations. The true measure of success is not in what you build, but in how you built it and who you became along the way. Have you ever had to hide a part of yourself from family or friends? What would happen if they suddenly discovered your hidden success or talent? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this resonated with you, and share with someone who might need a reminder that sometimes the people who dismiss your dreams are the ones who most need to see you succeed. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, your worth isn't determined by others' ability to see it.